UKIO is the biggest, one of the biggest radiography conferences. Yet it's still, I can mention it to newly qualified radiographers. Are you going to UKIO? And they go, what's that? That side of the AI and technologies, people need to know what it's going to do down the line, rather than what it can do for you. Or it can take over this and it can take over that. No, it's not taking over. It is helping us help our patients.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Skilled Personnel Network podcast. We have today a bonus episode. I spent a bit of time looking at the podcast that we've done so far, and a few topics have come out which we're very, very keen to kind of raise. So, Boz, how you doing?
I'm grand. I've got a bit of a cold, so ignore the nasalness of my voice. I do apologise. We can call these episodes Blithering with Boz.
Actually, that's a pretty good idea. Let's do that. We won't say what F's go with Foddy, so we'll just leave Blithering.
Yeah, that's grand.
I am very, very interested, Boz, I think, to really delve down into some of these topics, and I want to call upon your wisdom and really look at some of these particular topics that have been raised from the podcast around things like education and research. So one of the things that's first to come to my mind is, so when people are when radiographers are going through their student years, there's a big emphasis on the training, obviously, element of it. But then once they get into their first post, their band 5, they're newly grads, effectively away they go and onwards they march. And other than obviously their own endeavours and that of maybe their leadership and the practice educators around them, it's just trying to understand, how do we promote that continued professional development ethic in those. So how do you look at that particular area, mate?
No, I think that's quite a valid point. Obviously, there are those who are just interested in it and they like to get involved with. If they hear about an audit or a research project or something like that, they'll put their name forward. But I think it's tiny things like pointing them in. So many trusts at the moment are feeling the pinch and don't have kind of budgets to send you on courses or send you into CPD events and things like that, because some of them are quite expensive. However, pretty much every trust that I've ever been acquainted with have training packages that are above and beyond your mandatory training. They have leadership skills courses, they have research development courses, bringing up research questions, how to develop an audit, things like that, that are in-house training, which don't cost. And I think pretty much every trust and whoever's in charge of the rotas will be happy to give people time, because it's not costing them, especially in their first year. Yeah, you need to get the clinical practice under your belt.
Yeah.
But pretty much every department I know will be happy to say, yeah, of course you can have the morning of that to go and do this course, because they see value in upskilling their staff. The more that they can do that doesn't cost them money, essentially, they'll jump at the chance. But people don't. They go onto the learning site and they do their mandatory training and don't actually look at what else is on to offer. I think promoting the fact that we'll happily give you the time to go and do this and this course, even if it's I know a couple of my colleagues have self-funded other outside CPD events, and the Rotary team are happy to give them the time to go and do those things. But I think it's a lot of people in a lot of departments they say, oh, we're doing an audit, and everyone just shuts off. What I think the way to approach getting people involved is to say, we're doing an audit with the aims of, it's
Right.
going to improve this, this, and this. Because people, personally, definitely, if I see I enjoy research. I enjoyed research when I can see the point to it. I'm
Hmm.
not a research radiographer, and there are a lot of those who enjoy research, just every aspect of it. I like to see the end product, and I'm happy to be involved if it's going to affect my practice or improve
Yeah.
my patients' journeys. And I think that side of it is often missed out. The we're doing an audit not to get people in trouble, not to see how we're doing badly, not to see how just stats. We're doing it because if this audit shows X, then we will be able to do Y. If it shows Y, then we will be able to expand it and things like
Yeah.
that. It's the outcomes of research that people are interested in. And when you've got an outcome that you're invested in, you will enjoy the whole process a hell of a lot more.
Mm.
And I think that's often it's just not mentioned.
Yeah. Well, you touch upon the point just now around the time potentially being allocated, but the budget not necessarily always being there. I'm wondering how we can try and improve that, boss, because that's something that's quite precious to me to think about. It not just being something that, yeah, I granted some supernumerary things will need to be self-funded because they may fall outside of remit, but many things I think far too often, and I'll give you an example of this. Far too often, I've heard of people self-funding things that perhaps weren't out of remit and could have been very very much in the CPD
Yeah,
realm for the radiographer. There was a band five radiographer newly qualified at a recent event I attended in October. He was one of the only radiographers, and when we sat down and when I sat down and spoke with him, he actually said to me that he'd self-funded his journey, his ticket, his hotels for a 2 day event that probably cost him all in all around £500.
yeah,
And I was thinking to myself, wow, that is pretty impressive of him that he did that.
very much.
And unfortunately, a bit of a kind of well challenge of it's a shame you had to fund all of that.
Yeah. I would love one day to have a backing, a fund. So you know how places do scholarships,
Yeah,
educational facility, colleges, universities do scholarships based on applications. I would love to have that type of fund to be able, I've got UKIO coming up
mm,
in June. I really want to go. I want to go to all 3 days, but my trust isn't going to fund it, which is fair enough because all 3 days of UKIO, it can, if more than one person wants to go, it can add up.
yeah,
They approach the fund and go, I would really like help funding this. My aims are, my things are, I'm going to go, I've looked at the thing, I'm going to attend this, and this seminar. I'm going to, and I'm going to then just go on and come back to my trust, and I'm going to be able to, you know, help my other colleagues,
absolutely.
and I think that type of thing, not just going right, I want to do some CPD, can I have some money for it? It's an actual. I think it should be done by application. You know, actually showing what what you're using that money for. I think the trusts should fund as much as they can because
Yeah,
I think even just going to the free bit of UKIO, I've done a couple of times when I was earlier on in my career. I didn't go to any of the seminars, but I went to the free exhibitions and things like that, and you get access to all sorts of information and
oh yeah,
meeting people who can help upskill you, happy to talk to you about different areas of research, things like that. And so even just allowing the time of, I think that should be a given. But for someone to be able to come to a fund and say, I've got a real interest in reporting. There's going to be a few seminars at UKIO. I'm going to use that for my CPD, but I'm also going to disseminate it to my colleagues when I get back via a PowerPoint, things like that. I think that would be quite a good thing to have available to radiographers.
And the point about the conferences, what would be really useful actually, and because I get it, it's a juggling act for the leadership to be able
Yeah,
to even if it's free, boss, to free, to allocate the time. If everyone wanted to go, then you've not got a department running. So I get that there's got to be it's a fine balance, but actually for the people listening, there can be, for those that can't or aren't being funded to go, what would be useful for you to do is just expand on that point around why if you don't, if you're not getting funded for it, why it's still important to go to events like the UKIO, just to try and sort of understand what greater opportunity there is for their career to understand what's going on.
yeah, I think so. First of all, I don't think UKIO is one of the biggest radiography conferences. Yet it's still, I can mention it to newly qualified radiographers. Oh, are you going to UKIO? And they go, what's that? I do think it needs better marketing in the trusts. That being said, I found when I went, so you go there and you're faced with the big stalls from, the big GE, Fujifilm, things like that, and you think, oh, that's got nothing to do with me because I'm not a manager, I'm not the finance person. But when you go and speak to the people who are representing these companies, they are really happy to go say, come and look at this new kit. I know you can't buy it, but come and have a look at this kit. What it can do for you. Go and mention it to your management. What with the kit that you're currently using, what are the downsides? And a lot of the time, they're quite thankful for your feedback as well. As a frontline, a lot of the time the junior staff are the ones that are using the kit. The management are buying it, but it's the day-to-day use of it that these big firms, they want feedback. They want to know what works well, what doesn't work well, what's annoying. We've got this new longer table, and then the management, oh, that's great. We can can do more stuff on it. But then a junior member of staff go, yes, that's fine, but our CT room won't fit that. We wouldn't be able to get a trolley in that way. So those type of things, I think, put people off, but it's really valuable, and everyone is really, really happy to speak to anyone about their kit and feedback and things like that. But also what people don't realize is just because you're not attending maybe some of the speeches and the seminars and things like that, in those open access areas, there's pretty much always the posters, the research posters and things like that people have submitted to the conferences. They're usually free access, which some of them are fascinating. Some of them are way, way over my head, but you've got access to new and top of the line research from really, really incredibly complex areas that you just wouldn't necessarily have access to in your day to day. There's loads of free stuff, loads of free pens, which is always a bonus for NHS staff. You'll always get a lot of pens, which, I mean, that's the selling point. I think the few times that I've been to UKO, I think it's the mainly, when I mention it to start, I think, oh, will you bring me back a pen? It's got to be a clicky one that's black, but yeah, so you'll be very popular when you go back. And also, I think pretty much every conference, even though the vast majority of the seminars and the talks you have to pay for, there are usually free ones. which are usually quite broad spectrum topics as well. So they're interesting to pretty much anyone who's attending, rather than the more niche specialist talks.
Yeah. Yeah,
Plus,
you know, sorry.
you get to meet people like you.
Oh, well, on that note, not to plug my attendance record at UKIO or UKRC, as it was known back then, with the exception of 2014, when Michaela, my last daughter, was born. Literally on the date it was on. So I would have been the worst dad in the world if I'd have gone.
Yeah.
Literally from 2003 onwards, and not including 2020 when it was online, I've attended every event, every UK RC, UKIO. Now, not wanting a Blue Peter badge for that, Oz, but I think what comes to light with that is how important I see that event in terms of interaction with the profession, whether that's radiographers or radiologists, industry leaders. And it's very apparent to me that I always know I will see the usual suspects. And by and large, boss, yeah, I'll very often see you there if you can make it as well. And very often I know you'll self-fund it. And I know that a lot of the usual suspects will self-fund it as well. And I think what I'm definitely looking to do, and hopefully we can promote this via the network, is to try and facilitate as many ways as possible, as to try and get as many people that are, I would say, in that middle ground of, they're not students, they're not in leadership, but they're clinical, and they're doing the day to day as you described,
Yeah.
and see more of those, because what they're
No.
going to see when they come to this is innovation, and it's going to
Yeah.
buzz them up, and it's going to be of benefit to their trust for their sites when they go back.
I think it's also just the enthusiasm. You can, once you've qualified and you're starting your job, it can very quickly become a job. I come in 9 o'clock, I do my job, I go home, I go to sleep, and I come back to work, and it's just, so when you're a student, everything's new. You every year you're adding to your knowledge base, things like that. But once you're qualified, it seems to fall off a cliff. That kind of putting into you and
Mm-hmm.
adding more to you. And when you attend these events and you see radiographers who have qualified 25, 30 years ago, who are still pushing out new research, who are still innovating, and there's people like yourselves and the big companies who are constantly kind of going, yeah, what more can we do for you?
Mm.
You do go back refreshed. It does give you enthusiasm that you're not just doing your job and that's it. That's the end of it now. There is more, and there are people out there who are trying to push up the profession and the knowledge base and things like that. And that I think is a good. It's just refreshing to see.
Well, do you know, with that in mind, a lot of the the elements of new technology, and particularly things like AI and new techniques and stuff, that's what we're going to see at these events.
Yeah.
And eventually, they're going to make their way to the clinical practice. And I know we were having this discussion a couple of weeks ago around how you're using AI now as well. And almost what you don't want to do is have it to be a bit of a taboo subject, that or something that's thrusted upon people, because they don't have the opportunity to see it other than their own endeavours of looking
Yeah.
about what's going on. So it's a segue question. How do we promote the fact that actually we're in a changing profession? Technology is going to play a great deal in what we're doing, and whether you are a reporting radiographer or whether you are a newly qualified radiographer, we're going
How
to
do
need
those?
to embrace the new technologies, and not keep it at arm's length.
Yeah. So this is kind of a first-hand experience for me currently. So I attended UKIO. When was it? When was the last time that I met you? Was it 3 years ago? two
Or
years
the
ago?
last one you went was two, not
Two
last
years
year, year
ago.
before.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, um, I walked in, and just as you came into the main area, there was an AI stand in front of me, a company called Annalise, and I was with another chest reporter, and we kind of went over because we saw it was chest stuff, and chatted to them for ages. Really nice, and they were kind of saying, this is what this does, and this is how it can be implemented, and we can. It's not taking your job anytime soon, but it can help, flag things up or prioritize your work list, things like that. And I was like, oh, it's great, really interesting, blah blah blah. Forward 2 years, we are now using Annalise AI to help us out with our reporting lists. And I was like, okay, I've watched that transition from this is what we could do to this is what we are doing.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a reporter, people are going, oh, you 2 years time, you're not going to have a job. AI is just going to be reporting everything.
Yeah.
I don't see it yet. It's so AI that I've had experience with it's incredible. I don't understand. It's way beyond my comprehension of how it works. I just don't understand AI, and in my mind, it's Matrix. We're all going to be used for batteries in a couple of years' time, and the robots are going to rule the world. But I can see that it's adding to us currently rather than taking over. It's doing things that we can't do in the background. So we do, let's say 100 x-rays in a day. They will appear on a reporting list in whatever order, the order that we did them in, that we took them in, the patients came in time, whatever. We don't know until we open it if it's going to be normal, if it's going to be, a cancer that needs actioning on. It's got something on it that they need to go to A&E now. So we could work through that work list, kind of come to the end of the day, we've done 90 of those 100. Fine. But what we don't know is those 10 that we didn't get round to might have been needed to be actioned on first. So what it's currently doing for us is saying, I think there's something on here you need to look at. Can you look at it before this one, which I don't think has anything wrong with it. It's not to say that you're not going to report that normal, but it's saying this person may need help now. And I think that is the main value that I see in it. Eventually, there is talk of it kind of doing reports or adding the normal reports or itself. It's nowhere near that yet. I'm not going to be job hunting anytime soon. And I think that needs to be the headline of all
Correct.
AI is not this is taking over. It needs to be this is how we can help you do your job and streamline your job or make you more efficient or make you more help your patient care. I think that needs to be flagged a bit more to the user. And as for people, for instance, people that aren't using AI, I think, or our patients, I think we need to be, saying we're using this because, and that's, the NHS has spent, I imagine the numbers are astronomical spending wise on these programs, but so someone, why you've got a radiologist, you've got a reporting radiographer, why are you spending money on this? And I think that needs to be shown how it's being used to say, it's it's bringing up those potential cancers to, therefore that report is going to be done in a day rather than 2 days, and that can make a difference to people. I know firsthand the patients are coming in. A lot of the time they've got a GP request in their hand. They've read what that doctor has written, and if that letter has a question mark or even flags the suggestion of cancer, that person in their mind has cancer until proven otherwise.
Mhm.
I've had this countless times where people are coming in. Just yesterday, I had a guy who came into the hospital and he was visibly shaken because it happened to be that his family member had passed away and he had other issues and anxieties and things like that. But his request had cancer on it. It said, "Is there cancer on this chest?" And he was visibly shaking because in his mind he had cancer because of whatever experiences he had had in his family or things like that until he was until it was proven otherwise. So he's going away and having to wait X amount of time whenever these reports are
Yeah.
being done. Thankfully, we're pretty quick with our GP requests, our reports. But if that guy goes home knowing that AI is being used and he is going to get, if there is a cancer, he is going to be on the correct pathway sooner. I think that's a win.
Yeah.
I call it scanxiety. You've got anxiety from your scan, waiting for those results, and it can be life altering. I mean, the lighting, sorry. And I think that side of the AI and technologies, people need to know what it's going to do down the line rather than what it can do for you. Or it can take over this and it can take over that. No, it's not taking over. It is helping us help our patients.
Yeah. Controlling the narrative there on what you're saying is really, really important, Boz,
Yep.
because if you think about the profession in this that's got AI looming and it's doing it and it's ever improving, and if I think about purely the AI and imaging and the algorithms, it's getting frighteningly good at calling normals. Yes, we understand that it can be overcalling. You'd rather that than the other way round. But the reality of it is that it's getting very, very good at normals. And controlling the narrative in knowing that your job is still safe and actually what it's doing is augmenting and actually then realizing that in 20, 30 years time, possibly post my because I'm getting old now, but yeah, post my sort of retirement age. But certainly at some point, there are going to be not just radiography positions, or the radiography profession is going to be looking different. But I think Elon Musk has said, and trying to promote and plug Elon Musk here, but he said that there's one um, there's one profession that he believes will outlive AI, and that's hairdressing, because apparently you can't get a robot to get the feeling of someone's hair, and without potentially
Right.
cutting someone's head.
Mass exodus of every profession to the hairdressing colleges.
Yeah, all of a sudden we just plugged hairdressing here. My wife's a hairdresser. Anyway, that's another one for another day. Yeah, so but we're talking about down the line. The reality of it is radiography will exist, radiologists will exist. It's just going to be that it's going to be it's going to look very different and feel very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Controlling that narrative is very important.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think people need to realise that it's not going to be a case of losing jobs. It's going to be a case of adapting jobs with technologies. Years and years ago, there was no, MR, there was no ultrasound, there was no X-rays. So, but there was still, X-rays came in, radiologists came in. The radiologists originally were probably doing a bit of taking the X-rays and reading the X-rays and things like that, and that's evolved. Now there's radiographers. It's just an evolving landscape in healthcare. I don't healthcare itself is going to be human led for pretty much ever, I think. I mean, until the robots and Matrix take over, obviously, but no time soon. And I think radiography in itself is pretty good at adapting because we've had so much advancement in so
Yeah,
short a space of time. I think we're quite a good profession at adapting and
yeah,
promoting that, radiographers can, go and report, go and put do interventional procedures, which radiologists would have done. But what they've adapted to, okay, we're going to do the more complex or the different cases and upskill radiographers to do that stuff. It just allows all these technologies and AI and things like that. It just allows us to shift our focus slightly. And I think that's the narrative, that it's not,
mm,
oh, AI can now do this. AI can now help you go and do that.
yeah,
And I think that's the narrative that needs to be driven a little bit more. Because yeah, it is scary when we were told, AI is coming in, you're changing your change is difficult. But
yeah.
if it's driven with the correct narrative, as you say, I think that makes everything a lot easier for people.
And this is where industry and the healthcare system, if you like, uh, need to be working closely because someone said to me once, Foddy, everyone's got an agenda. Just make sure yours is a good one. And so,
Yeah,
I was happy with that because, in that led, of course, there's with everything that you're doing, there might be an agenda, but from my perspective, in this instance, what you've got is industry looking to implement and integrate their products and software and services. So the way I see it, Boz, is that we have still got so much innovation, so many areas that we could improve upon. So if AI can take some of this area, do it well, do it efficiently, be monitored, be QA'd, ensure it's doing what it needs to be doing, then if that releases the profession to be able to do some of the things it's not able to do at the moment because it can't, because we've got capacity workforce
yeah,
issues, capacity issues, then let's embrace that technology and allow us to do the other things that we're not doing at the moment. And one of the things that I've recently come across, which I'm very very keen to develop, is how can we get out to those vulnerable patients? How can we improve the um, the access to imaging? And actually, what you then realise when you ask that question and you go out to the sector, you realise there is technology out there. There are services and products out there that can go out to people's homes now to do
yeah.
uh, imaging and point of care.
Well, that's the thing.
Um,
We've had district nurses for decades. Why can't we expand that? Those vulnerable people that need need care, need imaging, need treatments that can't, or it's not necessarily they can't, because pretty much everyone, we've got ambulance services and things like that, but it's detrimental to them to go into hospital,
yeah,
or they just don't have the means to do it. They don't have family and friends to help take them in and things like that. Yeah, no, I think that's a big area that we can improve on as a country. We're only a small country. Well, that's
we are.
England I'm talking about. We're only small. We should be able to have access for everyone.
But it's interesting. We're small, and yet the NHS is one of the biggest employers in the world. If you take it
Yeah, yeah.
as a whole sort of service, and Oz, with that in mind, we promised ourselves we wouldn't get too controversial,
Oh no,
too
here we go.
opinionated. But what is your view on? I mean, if I think about community-led services. The pressure is always going to be workforce,
Yep.
and well, as one of the main pressures. Then it leads to, okay, well, you've got, yeah, the parameters of the regulations, IRMA and so on, and so practice in terms of radiography could not hide but sit behind the IRMA regulations. But look at a circumstance like a paramedic that goes out to a scene or to out to a wherever it might be, and imaging is needed, and imaging is critical at that point. Is there
Yeah.
is there is there a view that you have around how we could be doing things better in terms of certain extended scope? Physios, for example, are routinely doing ultrasounds now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to gatekeep a little bit.
This is what we like.
Extended scope is fantastic, and I know of people who have done radiographers who have done advanced nurse practitioner courses and become triage. They help out in the triage in A&E, and they're also radiographers. They also do. There's some trusts are using radiographer like discharge, which is extended scope. Radiography is the vast majority. What we're where we differ from some other countries where they're X-ray techs is the understanding of the radiation and why we can say yes, we'll do that X-ray, or why we'll say actually no, we're not doing that X-ray. It's not justified. And that 3 years training as a radiographer, and you come out the first day of your thing, you're like, okay, I'm qualified now. I know what's justified and what's not. And you pick up your first request card, and it's got something obscure asking for, and whatever exam it is, and you will come across situations that you've not experienced. You don't know if it's justified, which is where experience in radiography, you go to the more experienced person or the specialist and you go, is this justified? And they go, oh yeah, definitely, because XYZ. So knowing how to take an X-ray is one thing, and you learn that in your first year. That's not the qualification. So paramedics doing certain X-rays or radiographers doing certain, going both ways, radiographers training as paramedics and having that access to on the scene imaging would be incredible. From a patient care point of view and treatment and having someone be able to, you go to a road traffic accident and you're able to check there and then if they've got a C-spine fracture or things like that would be invaluable. However, I think you need the full scope of practice. I don't. It's not going to happen anytime soon where other professions are doing X-rays at there may be scope for a radiographer to go with the paramedic in the ambulance or something like that and do the imaging. Because I think currently that type of thing, the paramedic's full skill set is needed to do the paramedic's job at an accident or an emergency or someone. And if they have to think about the imaging side of things, or a radiographer goes out and doesn't have the clinical experience to know, they've learned a certain extended role, I just don't see. It would be incredible to have a hybrid, but I don't see it happening anytime soon because of that experience, the knowing the job role.
Yeah.
I'm not explaining that very well, but
I think you are. I think you are. I mean, if you think about encroachment and, that's what some people call it, and other people call it role extension, extended
yes,
scope.
I'm all for. I think I quite I see the value in those type of things. I'd love to have the skills that a paramedic has, and be able to do the imaging at the same time. I think that would be an incredibly rewarding job. My worry would be that I would dilute the other skill.
Dilution, yeah.
So so the radiographers I know who do the radiographer discharge and things like and the triage, that I see as a role extension, because sometimes they're doing the triaging and the nursing side of it, the course they've done, those skills, and then other times they're doing radiography. If they were doing both at the same time, I feel there would be a dilution of skills,
Hmm.
because you're not thinking in a let's go with the road traffic accident scenario. You're not fully thinking with the paramedic mind, and you're not fully thinking with the radiographer mind. So, and the experience of both of those professions needs to be 100% in that scenario, I think. So I'm all for nurses coming in and learning about radiography and then maybe um, interpreting, reporting X-rays, possibly, but they all A&E nurse practitioners are essentially um, interpreting X-rays. They're not putting the report on them, but they're discharging the patient based on what they're seeing on. That's a role extension. I'm
Yeah.
all for that. The same way that radiographers training to do discharge and things like that. I think it's brilliant in certain scenarios when you can utilize those skills together without detriment of either of them.
Yeah.
In emergency situations, when you're merging roles, I feel that may be dangerous.
Mm. The idea of blue lighting an X-ray car that attend alongside, if needed, that's there's always
Yeah,
an
that's
attract.
that's different.
Yeah, that's different for sure because you're talking about both practices working in parallel. But interestingly, the point you make about nurses and talking before about physios is the moment you've got referral rights into imaging. I think you're right. I mean, and I think the radiography profession as a whole, radiology, has been extremely accommodating to the fact that actually, or embracing of the fact that if other professions are going to refer in, let's do our damnedest and best to ensure that help them with basic interpretation, for example. And I know that goes on, Bros, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm doing a teaching session in a couple of weeks for the nurse practitioners in the A&E department on chests and things like that. And I think it's in everyone's best interests, because
Exactly.
not every trust can keep up with their report, can do a hot reporting service. So it does rely on these other professions to be able to spot life-threatening things, so they don't discharge people back into their life with dangerous pathologies or things going on. So I
Yeah.
think it's just common decency to kind of go, yeah, we'll help you. You know, we're all, as much as there are professional boundaries that
Sure.
sometimes get strained. Essentially, we're all one team, and our goal is that patient walking through the door, their best outcome. And I think anything we can do collectively should be.
And I think that is a very, very good point to end upon. Boz, this has been really, really interesting today. And what we'll continue to do is take questions from people from the Skilled Personnel Network, from LinkedIn, any questions people may have that they want us to discuss on
To
the
blither with Boz about.
Liver with Boz. That could definitely stick. Thank you very, very much, Boz. Good.
Yeah, no problem. Grand, it was a bit of fun.
Yeah, very much enjoyed it. Thank you very, very much. I look forward to doing this again. And thanks
Yep.
everyone for joining us.
See you later.
See you later. Bye bye.